This is operations in scientific notation. If you want to add or subtract numbers that are already written in scientific notation, the first thing you have to check is if they have the same power of 10. If they do, just add or subtract the factors. If they don't, you're going to need to rewrite one of your numbers so they do have the same power of 10. After you add or subtract your factors, make sure that your final answer is still written in scientific notation. Let's take a look at a couple examples. Here we're doing 4.6 times 10 to the third power plus 8.72 times 10 to the third power. Since they both are to 10 to the third power, I'm just going to go to adding my factors. So I'm going to add 4.6 plus 8.72. Now add a 0 in my empty space here. I get 13.32, and this will also be times 10 to the third power. Now I always want to make sure my final answer is still in scientific notation, and this one is not because 13 is larger than 10. So I'm going to have to move that decimal over one more spot to make it 1.322. And now it's going to be times 10 to the fourth because I moved my decimal one more spot. Let's take a look at this subtraction problem. I'm doing 3.5 times 10 to the negative second power minus 6.6 times 10 to the negative third power. Now these are both small numbers, but they don't have the same power of 10. So I'm going to change this one by moving my decimal over one spot, making it a smaller number. It's going to become 0.66. But since I already made it a little bit smaller, my power goes to 10 to the negative second. So now I have an equation where, an expression where both of my numbers in scientific notation have the same power of 10. So I'm just going to subtract my factors. So 3.5 minus 0.66, and add zeros into my empty space here. Have to do some borrowing to complete this one. And I get 2.84, and this will be times 10 to the negative second power. And this time my final answer is in scientific notation, so I don't have to do anything else to it. If I'm multiplying or dividing numbers written in scientific notation, I can multiply or divide the factors and multiply or divide the powers separately. The powers do not have to be the same when I'm multiplying or dividing. Let's look at some examples. So I can actually regroup this problem since it's all multiplication and the order of multiplication doesn't matter. I can regroup it as 3 times 5, my two factors, times 10 to the negative fifth times 10 to the negative second power. So the 3 times 5 is going to give us 15. To combine these powers, I'm going to add their exponents. So I get 15 times 10 to the negative 7th power. Now 15 is not acceptable for scientific notation. It's larger than 10. So I'm going to move that decimal over one more spot, which is going to increase my exponent to negative 6. 1.5 times 10 to the negative 6th power. All right, let's take a look at one more here. This time we're dividing. So I'm going to regroup these. I'm going to do 1.5 divided by 6 times 10 to the negative 8th over 10 to the 7th. And I'm going to do my division first here. 1.5 divided by 6 is going to give me 0.25. And 10 to the negative 8th divided by 10 to the negative 7th, I'm going to do negative 8 minus 7 to my exponents. I get 10 to the negative 15th. Once again, my final answer here is not in scientific notation, but this time I have to actually move the decimal back one, so it's going to become 2.5, which is going to increase my exponent to negative 16, because now I have to move 16 spots back to get my original number. take a look at this real life example. So how many times greater is the diameter of the sun than the diameter of the earth? So right now, this one is written in standard form and this one's written in scientific notation. So let's change this guy so that it is also written in scientific notation. So this is equal to 1.4 times 10 to the 6th kilometers. Now the sun is bigger, but we want to know how many times greater. So we actually have to divide 1.4 times 10 to the 6th divided by 1.28 times 10 to the 4th. So I'm going to, since I'm going to do division here, I'm going to split these into my factors and my powers of 10. So 1.4 divided by 1.28 gives me 1.09375. And for my powers of 10, I'm going to subtract my exponents, 10 to the 2nd power. Now if I do want to write this answer in standard form, this would be 109.375 kilometers. Oh, sorry, not kilometers, times greater. So this is how many times greater. 109 times greater is the sun's diameter than Earth, or 1.09375 times 10 to the 2nd power.